Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
And welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. Well, pro-Palestinian protesters were chanting "Death to America, death to Israel," and doing it on U.S. soil in Dearborn, Michigan recently. And this comes as many people believe that President Biden is abandoning Israel in many ways publicly and also privately. And joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Shahar Azani, the former Israeli Consulate Spokesman. Shahar, great to have you here.
Always a pleasure to be with you and our listeners, Rita.
What is your reaction to hear that somebody on U.S. soil was just chanting these vile words, death to America, death to Israel, not thousands of miles away, but here in America, and there were people chanting with this person?
Well, Rita, I'm sure you, like so many of our listeners, are aware, if you really listen carefully, you will hear all of the alarm ringings around us, telling us what's happening. We call this an age of masks off. And sadly, tragically, I must say, I'm not surprised. We have seen them burning down U.S. flags on Lexington Avenue in New York, unabashedly, unashamed. And it's clear that the same forces that threaten the state of Israel today, the same forces that threaten the free world, the same forces that threaten our freedoms are the same forces that are chanting death to America on American soil. And the question is, what are we going to do about this?
What do you think we should be doing about it? I mean, I wonder, Shahar, why are our leaders not right away, even well before this, when we saw the protests on college campuses? I wonder, at that moment, they should have said, this is not acceptable.
Right. You know, the people, especially those leaders who are either cowards, misguided, mistaken, tell themselves stories. They tell themselves that, they don't mean it. They tell themselves, it's not about us, it's just about Israel. And they feed themselves and the people who follow them such lies. And the same kind of reality existed in Israel before October 7th, when some Israeli leaders were looking into Gaza and said, they just chant those words, but they don't really mean it. Because at the end of the day, what does everybody want? They want to live. They want to have a nice livelihood. They want to be able to provide for their children, because they try to look at other people the same way they look at themselves. What happened to us on October 7th? We woke up to realize a horrendous reality in which we must believe them when they tell us who they are. And when they say that they are a death cult, desiring death over life, willing to sacrifice everything just to kill and maim and torture and rape, and that's exactly what they did. We did not heed those warnings, and we paid a terrible price that we are now fighting to eradicate. I beg you, Rita, I beg our listeners, I beg our leaders, don't fall into the same trap. Listen carefully to what these people are telling you, because if you cannot condemn the decapitation of babies, if you burn down American flags on American soil and show such contempt to the country that's feeding you, that's hosting you, you are telling everyone around you who you really are.
What's your reaction also, Shahar, to the fact that one of the squad members, Congresswoman Rita Tlaib, wouldn't condemn it? She was asked, and they were kind of chasing her down the hallway saying, what's your reaction to somebody in your state? Because it's her state, of course. What's your reaction? She wouldn't answer. It's not a trick question.
It's not a trick question. And Rita Tlaib was that person on Congress who refused to condemn the decapitation of babies and putting babies in the oven. And it's not the first time that she has expressed such contempt to humanity. Even a couple of years ago, I mean, she's well known to spread anti-Semitic lies. And the real tragedy here for us as a nation here in the U.S. is that this woman is serving in our Congress. She is serving in the Congress of the United States of America. I want to share with you, Rita, that a couple of days ago, there was a demonstration, a similar one, in the city of Chicago, where one of the members of the city council was speaking at a demonstration where a flag of the United States was burning. Now, when some members of the Chicago City Council try to bring about a resolution to punish him and sanction him for what he has done, speaking at such a rally, when the flag of the U.S. is burning, the mayor immediately jumped in his defense and prevented any opportunity to put him in his place. This kind of weak attitude towards people who threaten our very existence is a pathway to a very, very dangerous future for all of us.
You know, Hillel just came out with a publication saying that there have been more attacks on Jewish students since October 7th than all 10 years before that combined. That's stunning. What does that say about just how dangerous it is, sadly, to be a Jewish student in America?
You know, the October 7th massacre opened the gates, the floodgates to these hatreds when it became open season to, quote unquote, go on Jew hunting on college campuses and on the streets and even here in the United States. And we know that one of the main characteristics of this ancient disease of anti-Semitism is when it appears strongly in any society, it's an indication of a very serious potential for decay of the entire body. And what starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews. And we must curb this kind of activity now and stand up to it before we pay a heavy price as a society. It's unacceptable. Unacceptable. We've seen such images in the past few months. Who would have believed we will see them in the United States when Jewish students at Cooper Union, that image, Rita, and we've spoken about this in the past, will never leave me, when a couple of Jewish students are cowering in fright when the masses in the heart of New York are banging on the doors of a library trying to get hold of them. These are images reminiscent of 19th century Europe. And this is the United States of America, the beacon of democracy and freedom of light for the entire world and the subject for incredible jealousy. We must never lose our soul. We must never lose who we are as a nation.
I agree. And, you know, you talked about Cooper Union, Shahar, because you probably saw this, but those students who were trapped, and that I agree with you, it was just so disheartening and disgusting to see it. And those students are now suing the college over anti-Semitism. Do you think that that might put some of these colleges on notice?
Well, it's a shame that we have to resort to such situations. It's a shame that these colleges don't take a harsh approach against such terror-supporting mobs in their midst. Why do we need to resort to legal measures? Why do we need to drag these so-called academicians and professors and quote-unquote smart people to whom we pay tens of thousands of dollars every year to educate our children? Why do we have to drag them by the hair to Congress or to the courts to teach them basic decency, basic humanity, basic principles that, Rita, you and I, we teach our children from a very early age? We try to teach them how to behave in society and how to be a good person. And such an easy and clear and simple lesson seems to evade them, and they're not even able to comprehend how wrong their ways are in handling this situation. It's truly tragic for the United States of America, honestly. And we've seen, by the way, so many more Jews choosing not to go to the Ivy League, the poison Ivy League, as a result of such a hostile atmosphere. What does that tell us about where we're going?
Yeah, that is scary because you look at even after the grilling that happened, obviously there were changes at Harvard and UPenn, but I don't know if there's enough changes, you tell me. And then next week is going to be the hearing on Capitol Hill with Columbia University. So clearly there's still problems there, Shahar.
Oh, and to say problems, I have good friends at Columbia University, both students that I've spoken to and faculty members, people who've been there for years. And they are absolutely aghast at the situation. And right now, we've seen, Rita, at UCLA, the medical school there, when they brought this, I can't even, let's say, creature, because there was an entity there completely covered like a mummy with sunglasses inside the classroom and kafia chanting with students on an obligatory course, Free Palestine. I mean, how has that become part of the curriculum? How is this being allowed that a terrorist organization that's raped and tortured and maimed is being supported and chanted within a compulsory obligatory course at the UCLA Medical School, and by somebody who, unsurprisingly so, is completely anonymous and doesn't even show her face? You know why she doesn't show her face, because she knows how abominable she and her positions are.
You know, I was seeing a story. It's with the Anti-Defamation League. They reviewed 85 of America's top universities. And boy, is this just chanting. When you see it, it says that those with the highest proportion of Jewish students, they figured, OK, let's see. They reviewed it. Only 2, I think, got an A. It was Brandeis University in Massachusetts and Elon University in North Carolina. And then there were a whole bunch of them that got a flat out F. And that includes Harvard and MIT and some of these others that have already been grilled. You would think there would be changes, but here it is. No.
It just goes to show you how deep the disease is. And, you know, it goes beyond anti-Semitism, because in the course of the time that passed, we have learned about the incredible funding that's being funneled into so many of the campuses here in the United States by nefarious dictatorial entities like Qatar and other countries. And they don't do so in the hope of joining hands technologically and creating a brighter future together. They're doing so to undermine the society here in the United States, to undermine our values, and to make sure that evil ideas are penetrating into the minds and hearts of our future generation to weaken us as a country. And that is something that we must stand strongly against and take immediate measures to make sure that our education, that our campuses, that our universities remain free.
You know, what about the role of the president of the United States? He has not come out and condemned this. And in fact, when there were protesters, because they've been following him around, too, and they followed him around at a speech not that long ago, and he interrupted the speech, Shahar, they came out. He said, wait, they have a point. You know, let them speak. They have a point. I thought, wait a minute, they have a point. What role should he be? Don't you think he should be saying, we will not tolerate this kind of verbiage. We will not stand for this. We're a country where we allow free speech, but not hate speech.
You know, and not just for the sake of Israel or for the sake of the Jewish people, but for the sake of the American people and for the sake of the American spirit, not for us, but for the U.S. society to be able to stand on its feet. The president has taken, unfortunately, a very sad turn when it comes to the patience towards such hatred and of course, vis-a-vis Israel. And you know what? Even electorally speaking, I think sticking to your gun on such an issue of good versus bad, on such a moral issue that touches the core of our very foundation of our society, and by the way, such an issue that touches the strategic interest and security of the United States. I mean, may I remind all of us that Iran already has weapons that can reach the state of Israel. Why is it so important for them to work on ballistic missiles that will be able to cross a higher, farther distance? They know exactly what they're aiming at. And we are only, Israel is perceived to them to be the small Satan. And the big Satan is right here in the United States of America. And the sooner that the American administration and the American people understand, and I do believe that many of these people, many within the American public, understand very well what's at stake here, the better it is for the world and the better it is for all of us.
Do you believe that it's about 2 states? And we heard Marco Rubio say that it's Michigan and Minnesota as opposed to, a Palestinian state and a Jewish state.
Right. And thinking that that hope will emanate from a place where death to America chants are being echoed throughout the streets. That is a very grim future for these United States. And when it comes to a Palestinian state, well, that has been shot in the head by Hamas on October 7th. That is a complete and utter delusion. The Palestinians have proven themselves to be incapable to the core of managing their own affairs, because after 17 years of having their own freedom and sovereignty, they have manufactured a monstrosity. No viable person, people, or state, definitely not the state of Israel, will allow such evil to grow again. They have a long way ahead of them to prove that they're worthy of doing it on their own. Until then, they will have to suffer the consequences of their deeds and carry that stain on their souls and on their nationality for decades to come.
You know, President Biden has criticized Prime Minister Netanyahu's execution of the military strategies. He's called it a mistake. Were you surprised? A lot of people were very disheartened to see that, because if there are questions about tactics or issues, many people say it should be done privately, not in a public interview, in a public scolding. And some people feel he's been much more critical of Israel than he has even been of Hamas.
And that is, by the way, completely, it's a complete anomaly, because it just serves to empower Hamas when they see such supposed rift between Israel and the United States. And I want to address another thing here, Rita, because there is this perception that it's all about Benjamin Netanyahu, and the criticism is against Benjamin Netanyahu. And if only Benjamin Netanyahu were not there, things would be so different vis-a-vis Gaza and the military campaign. Let me reassure you and all of our listeners, nothing would be different had this campaign been managed by Benny Gantz, even Yair Lapid or Naftali Bennett. It's the spirit of the Israeli people. It's the Israeli people that's demanding to eradicate Hamas's military and political power in the Gaza Strip, whether it's Benjamin Netanyahu or not Benjamin Netanyahu. So the sooner we get rid of that assumption, the better. And I share your concern at the same time that making such statements in public just go to weaken the state of Israel and the United States of America's interests, because everybody is watching, Rita. The moderate Sunni regimes are watching. America's friends are watching, because the struggle that takes place in the Middle East today is not Israel versus Hamas, but rather Iran and its proxies of the Islamic fundamentalists versus the free world and the United States of America. And that's a battle we have no intention of losing.
You know, we've seen some Democrats even this week come out, and this was astounding to me, members of Congress, even Nancy Pelosi, saying, well, maybe we should consider withholding military funding to Israel. That was an astounding statement, given the history and the strong alliance between U.S. and Israel. And to hear them say that, that's really disheartening. What's your reaction when you hear that? And the Democrats who were, crying afoul when some Republicans questioned, to maybe look through the money that was going to Ukraine. Now here is Israel. As you know, they are surrounded and they're in the height of war. And yet, the Democrats are saying maybe we should withhold money there.
Yeah, it's absolutely abominable to hear such statements trying to undermine the United States, major ally in the Middle East, in such a way. And I wish for them to take note from Richie Torres and Senator John Fetterman and their moral position on this issue of good versus evil. It's not only right to stand up for what's right and to be against evil and call it by its name, but I do believe that the majority of Americans, the majority of the voters in the United States appreciate standing on principle and standing for what's right and proper, rather than play this game in the hope of winning the two-state solution that you had mentioned before, because that won't work.
How concerned are you in the middle of all this that, the state of the hostages? You and I have talked about this. I remember early on we were talking and looking at the faces of so many of these very young and old hostages, and some have been released, thank goodness. I keep them in my prayers every day, Shahar. I mean, it is just so heartbreaking for me to think about it, and I hope everybody feels the same way. And I've just prayed about it. And now we just heard word a couple days ago that Hamas is claiming that they may not have even 40 to do a trade, of the women and the children and the sick that would be sort of in this criteria for a trade with Israel. Are you concerned of their fate? And what do you think that says when you hear that message from Hamas? Does it mean that maybe some have been killed, or maybe they've been traded to other terrorist groups?
Well, I'm absolutely concerned about their fate, but I want to shine a light for a moment, Rita, on the abominable entity that we are facing here as a humanity, and that is Hamas, the barbarian savages who didn't only capture and take away people from their bedrooms on a Saturday morning of a Jewish holiday, but reportedly, and based on testimonies that we have, are torturing them, are sexually assaulting them, are humiliating them, and are killing them in captivity. They have held it as a banner to hold on to corpses of soldiers and innocent civilians who died. They've been holding such bodies of Israeli soldiers since back as the Protective Edge operation of 2014. And why, Rita? To make sure that the families of those people won't even have a grave to cry on. These are the cruel monstrosities that people like Rashida Tlaib and others can't even condemn, that the terror-supporting mobs on the streets who stand against Israel can look at the picture of 9-month-old at the time, Kfir Bibas, and say nothing. That's how deep and profound their moral depravity has become, and that is the mirror that we must be able to look into as a society and understand the kind of creatures we have within our midst who can show support for such monstrosities. These young girls are being raped in captivity by these savages on a daily basis, being abused to the core. Where is that movement in the U.S. that stands up for women victims? They have gone completely silent, these voices, when it comes to Jewish women. That's unacceptable. And you know what? The Jewish people, the state of Israel, if there is one thing that's common to us all, is a very, very long memory. We shall never forget what was done to us on October 7th, and we will never forget those who stood by us, like you, Rita, and our listeners, and so many good people, the silent majority, and we will never forget the loud minority that has come out in defense of such monstrosity.
Yeah, it is unbelievably shocking. And just like you said, there have been some women's groups that I'm saying, where are you? You know, I mean, right. and there's no gray here. We know what happened on October 7th. Finally, before I let you go, Shahar, we've heard from Israel, from the leader there, Netanyahu, saying that they will continue, that they must continue to eradicate Hamas. And as you point out, it's not just for them, it's for the world. Do you have any doubt that mission will continue? And how important is that, not just for Israel's security, but really for the world's security?
Well, imagine a house is on fire and you've been able to take out 75% of that fire. What happens to the other 25%? Do you just let it be and go away, hoping that the fire will go away on its own? That's not going to happen. And the same thing for Hamas. If we allow Hamas to continue to exist as a military and political entity in Gaza, and we simply leave it behind, it will immediately grow again using the Iranian money, Iranian support, and smuggling weapons again through tunnels and other means to grow again and become a threat for the state of Israel. And that is something that the state of Israel would never allow. But on a larger scale, such a situation will also mean a defeat, not just for the state of Israel, but for the United States and its allies throughout the Middle East, who will immediately understand that we, as U.S. and Israel, cannot eradicate the Iranian proxies and therefore will seek other means to engage with Iran. The last thing we want is allow for more influence for the Mullah Ayatollah regime that is bent on spreading chaos, death, and destruction, not just throughout the Middle East, but throughout the world. And might I take a moment to remind our listeners that Hezbollah, the same Iranian proxy in Lebanon, is making millions and millions of dollars through the opium trade in South America on America's doorstep. We've heard a couple of weeks ago about Hezbollah operatives who are penetrating the U.S. through the southern border, one of them reportedly making his way to New York. And we know they're not coming here to plant seeds of goodness. So be warned, Israel's victory is the world's victory and the U.S.'s victory. And I dare not mention the other option because there is none.
Yeah, no, you're right. Good people have to bandy together and fight evil. It is so important. Well, everybody, be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. Shahar Azani, thank you for all you do to keep America, Israel, and also the world safe. Keep fighting the good fight, and we are with you.
Thank you, Rita, for your incredible and clear voice for what's right and just and what's properly American.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, And thanks for all you do to protect America.
Going to the gym can be discouraging, especially if you're putting in the work but barely seeing changes. But with Tonal, you can actually see your progress with every workout. Tonal provides the convenience of a full gym and the expertise of a personal trainer anytime at home with one sleek system. Designed to reduce your mental load, Tonal is the ultimate strength training system, helping you focus less on workout planning and more on getting results. No more second-guessing your technique. Tonal gives you real-time coaching cues to dial in your form and help you lift safely and effectively. After a quick assessment, Tonal sets the optimal weight for every move and adjusts in 1-pound increments as you get stronger, so you're always challenged. Tonal lets you choose from a variety of expert-led workouts, from strength to arrow hit to yoga and mobility, to keep you coming back for more. For a limited time, go to Tonal.com to get $500 off your Tonal purchase, plus a free 4-year warranty. That's Tonal.com for $500 off, plus a free 4-year warranty. Tonal.com.